Questions presented during the following program were compiled by media representatives from the Cupertino Courier, Cupertino Neighbor, and the San Jose Mercury News. The City of Cupertino does not take responsibility for the editorial content. The City Channel presents Meet the Media, a 5-part series featuring each of the candidates running for Cupertino City Council. As part of our ongoing coverage of the Cupertino City Council race, this series has been designed as an up-close and personal introduction to each candidate. Tonight's featured candidate is John Bautista. Mr. Bautista, a 27-year-old attorney and member of the Cupertino Planning Commission, will be interviewed by Mike Betz, editor for the Cupertino Courier, Annie Belt, reporter for the Cupertino Neighbor, and Michael Cronk, reporter for the San Jose Mercury News. City Council candidate John Bautista's interview now begins with a question from Annie Belt.
Mr. Bautista, you're not new to Cupertino, having grown up in this town, but you are new to city politics, having been appointed to the Planning Commission just last January. What prompted you to run for City Council?
Well, as you mentioned, I've been a long-term Cupertino resident. I grew up in Cupertino, attended our schools, and I feel benefited from our community and owe some gratitude to our community. I decided that I wanted to get involved in Cupertino, and as a result, applied for and was appointed by the current City Council to the Planning Commission in January. Having been on the Planning Commission, I've been able to witness and gain a first-hand understanding of the complexity of issues that face this city. Just recently, City Council approved the current general plan. This plan is the blueprint for growth in Cupertino. It was the result of a 3-year effort among residents, business leaders, and city staff to produce a plan for growth in Cupertino. Now, the plan is a big document, but there are certain elements of that plan which I think are important to this election. The plan provides for a 50% increase in office space. I believe that this particular level of growth will result in increased traffic, will overcrowd our schools, libraries, and parks, and will lead to a general deterioration of the quality of life in Cupertino as we know it. In fact, along with the general plan, the Planning Commission worked on and produced an environmental impact report. One of the conclusions of that report was that as a result of this general plan amendment, and I'm speaking particularly of the land use element of the plan, would be to create a dense urban environment in Cupertino. My view of Cupertino from a youngster until presently has been of primarily a residential community. And I feel that Cupertino doesn't need to change to a dense urban environment. I'm not for no growth. We need to continue to grow, but we need to manage our growth to ensure that the interests of residents and businesses alike are met. And I think that the current increase in growth, which would represent, again, a 50% increase in office space in Cupertino over our existing stock of office space, is excessive. Now, this growth, as I mentioned, puts pressure on traffic. It puts pressure to build higher density housing. It is also the subject of the diocese lawsuit against the city because the diocese feels that the increase in development in the city core unfairly treats them because the plan does not provide for any development or very little development in the hillsides. The result of increasing a massive increase of development in the city core causes many of these problems. And I think by cutting back on industrial development, we can solve, or it makes it a lot easier to solve these problems. It makes it a lot easier to produce a housing element that is acceptable to the state, to deal with the jobs housing imbalance, to control traffic, to provide services to the library and the schools and the parks. So that's probably the primary reason why I decided to jump into this race. I really care about Cupertino. I want to see it remain primarily a residential community, and I hope that the residents of Cupertino will feel as strongly as I do about the current direction of our city.
Mr. Bautista, in talking about the general plan, it's obvious from your remarks that you do intend, if you're elected, to do what you can to ease the restrictions in some growth policies in the general plan. Specifically, two things. One, how much would you cut in terms of the industrial expansion allowed the computer firms? Two, what kind of compromise or what would be acceptable to you in terms of greater development on the diocese site? And three, are you saying that, you had said before that the general plan is a blueprint. Do you believe that the growth that you're envisioning is going to occur tomorrow, next year, 20 years from now? How soon, if the general plan were in place, would we see these changes?
Regarding your first question, I think we need to, and the question dealing with what level of cutback should we have in industrial development. There are a variety of methods that we need to explore to cut back industrial development. It needs to be fair. It needs to be fair to the businesses who have a stake in our community. I don't have a number, and I don't think it's going to mean saying an across-the-board 25% cut. I think we have to start with certain parameters. I think we need to start by saying we don't want buildings in Cupertino above a certain height. We don't want buildings in Cupertino above a certain level of density. We want to reserve certain space for parks, for housing, because we will need to provide housing over the next 2 years. And looking at those factors, then I think we can back out, run the numbers, and determine what is the appropriate level of development. On your second question regarding the appropriate level of development on the diocese property, the current hillside policy, which is a component of the general plan, provides for 40 additional units on that property, the remainder of the property devoted to open space. Now, the property owner believes that that level of development is extremely restrictive, which encumbers its ability to develop that property and exercise its property rights. It has filed a lawsuit against the city that I think is very risky and could jeopardize, if the city lost the suit, the fiscal integrity of our city. On the other hand, the property owner has willingly, over time, wanted to negotiate, and I think now's the time to negotiate. Now's the time to sit down, determine what the interests are of both parties, and work out numbers that meet those interests. Unfortunately, the current situation is one where we have picked, or the city has picked a number, 40 units. It is impossible now, for political reasons, to back away from that number, to arrive at a number of 45 units, or 100 units, or 200 units, or 250 units. We have taken a position vis-a-vis the diocese. I don't believe that's the appropriate way to negotiate. I believe the result of negotiation should be to attempt to satisfy the interests of all the parties. Our interest is not 40 units. Our interest is preserving as much open space as possible, maintaining the ecological balance in that area, maintaining the fact that that is an important asset to the city in terms of its views and its recreational activities. Now, The diocese has just proposed a new proposal for growth that I believe would result in about 175 units, or perhaps even, I think it's 160 units now, where 75% of the land there would be reserved for open space. I think they're moving in the right direction, and I think we're getting closer to a solution that is acceptable, a solution where at least 75% of the open space in that area would be publicly dedicated either to the county or another entity. This is what will really guarantee the long-term preservation of that area.
Mr. Bautista, I want to kind of shift gears for a minute and kind of look at the city's budget. Earlier in your campaign, you had discussed the importance of increasing sales tax revenue. What I'd like to ask you is, how can the city increase its sales tax revenue? And I'd also like to get your impressions on the budgetary process. You know, does the city's current budget process work, and what are your thoughts on it?
On your first question regarding sales tax revenue, I think it's important for people to understand that sales taxes are a very important aspect of our budget. They are the single most important revenue element to the budget, and the long-term viability of our budget will depend on our ability to increase sales taxes. With that in mind, I think we need to discuss with the major employers in Cupertino moving at least a portion of their sales tax revenues to Cupertino. This may not have to involve moving employees to Cupertino. You know, one concern of let's take Apple Computer, for example, which does not have its sales taxes in its sales office in Cupertino, is having to move its sales office into Cupertino and abandon space where those sales offices are. Cupertino should take an active role in perhaps negotiating with the city of San Jose as to an appropriate allocation of revenues, and base it on the number of employees that Apple employs between Cupertino and San Jose. This is one approach that we can use to increase sales tax revenue. The second thing is we need to continue to support local business. I think the heart of the city concept is a move in the right direction, because it at least recognizes that for Cupertino it is important to support local business. That is a development, the heart of the city is a development proposal that is being looked at currently. And I think that in the end we will find that that particular concept will work, but it's got to be a concept that is pedestrian friendly, that does not involve great densities, that involves minimal cost to the city and to businesses, and that does not compete with existing businesses, for example, Valco Park.
Mr. Bautista, if densities in the heart of the city are controlled more, I'm not sure that they're specified real strongly in the general plan now, but if they're controlled and pushed, forced to stay low, that would probably put more pressure on the hillside areas as far as people who want to live here, moving out into those areas to build homes. What would you do to try to prevent urban sprawl in the hills and keeping down densities in the downtown area?
Again, the land use element of the general plan is a document or has an interesting feature, and that is when you increase industrial development like the general plan has, a 50% increase in growth, that is what drives the need for additional housing, the need for density, the pressure on development in the hillsides. Well, I submit that once we cut back on industrial development, that'll relieve a lot of the pressure on development in the hillsides and higher densities in the city core. So I don't see higher density as a necessary result. I think that once we cut back on industrial development, then we can more easily manage housing along Stevens Creek and the pressure for housing in the hillsides. That pressure will have eroded a bit.
Another budget-related question. In the recent adoption of the last 4 budgets, the council has dipped into its reserve funds to fund major capital improvement projects. Do you favor that practice, and or do you favor finding some other revenue source to match expenditures and revenues and expenditures? And specifically, what programs currently within the city do you think could be cut more, or if any? And what services would you emphasize in your term as a councilman?
I don't like the practice of cutting into reserves, and as you mentioned, the city has done that. Now, the budget only provides for a 5-year projection, which I think is another problem with our budgetary process. We need to look further than 5 years. We look 10 years out in terms of general planning, but we only look 5 years out in terms of the budget. It's important to look more than 5 years out so we can be sure that we aren't cutting into surplus funds. I don't like the idea of being backed into a corner where at a particular point in time there are several projects that are important to Cupertino, but the only option is to make expenditures related to those projects in a short period of time, which is the result of or which causes a dip in our surplus fund account. So we need to plan for a longer period of time in the budgetary process. In terms of expenditures, we are currently running a $1 million shortfall. The current budget will dip into our surplus funds by approximately $1 million. Now, the budget is a very tough document to read, which also makes it a very tough document to analyze and to determine where the wasteful costs are. On quick review of the budget, there are several items in there that provide for unallocated expenses. For example, in the Public Works section of the budget, a item provides for $700,000 this year or in the next budgetary year of unallocated expenses. That needs to be looked into further. I don't believe that there should be any item in the budget that is unallocated. $700,000 is a big number, so I will investigate that. I think that Cupertino needs also to set priorities in spending. We have an excellent library. We have an excellent recreation system, and we need to continue to support those and find ways to support those.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Bautista, in your campaign, you've discussed the Tier 2 traffic control systems and some of the problems associated with that. What kind of traffic control system should the city use?
For the benefit of those listening, the Tier 2 system is a system that provides that for major employers that want to increase development in the city, that they need to demonstrate that as a result of that development, the actual number of traffic that results from that development will not increase. Now, that only applies to 2 million additional square feet of office space. Tier 2 does not apply to all of the 50% increase in office space that I've talked about. It's only a portion of it. Tier 2 is an attempt by the city to control traffic. And I think the city recognized early on that traffic is a big concern and does need to be dealt with. And let me tell you why. We are required to maintain certain level of service standards in our intersections. Once we dip below those standards because of increased traffic, then the city will need to make particular expenditures to mitigate those traffic levels. And these amounts are unquantifiable. We could be looking at $2 to $5 million in the course of a budgetary period for capital improvements to deal with traffic. Now, the Tier 2 system is a system that is not mandatory. It asks employers to demonstrate that they can reduce traffic. The city has discretionary power in the event that once a building is put up, that the employers do not comply and there actually is an increase in traffic, to impose monetary fines to induce those employers to reduce traffic levels. Now, I don't think this is the right approach. I think what we need to do is increase development overall. Once we do that, then we will see a reduction in the traffic projected under the general plan. Second, I don't believe that once a building is built, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the line, that you're going to be able to maintain a reduction in traffic levels. Let's face it, once a building is built, the city has very little control over what goes on regarding that building and the traffic associated with it. And the reality that we need to face is we should be sure that those buildings aren't built that will result in undesirable traffic levels. Let's solve the problem, and that is increased office space.
The City of Cupertino would like to thank City Council candidate John Bautista and media panel guests Annie Belt, Mike Betz, and Michael Cronk for their participation in this program. Election Tuesday is November 2nd. Vote for the 3 candidates best suited to serve on Cupertino City Council. And keep watching the City Channel for special City Council election programming. Throughout October, we'll be broadcasting this 5-part Meet the Media series, in addition to Meet the Candidate segments featuring each candidate's political platform, tape coverage of the October 12th Candidates Forum, and our live Election Night special. Refer to your free special election edition of the City Channel program schedule, now available at City Hall, the Library, Quinlan Community Center, and the TCI Cable Office on Imperial Avenue.